What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 27 of the Block Exploring podcast, News Bytes. Here with me is Tommy at Squared on Twitter.
Yeah.
And this week in crypto, we're going to be talking to you about every single thing that we thought of, every single thing that happened this past week. Follow us on Twitter, Block Exploring Podcast. And as always, nothing we say is financial advice. Always talk to a financial advisor before taking any action. Anyways, later on in the episode, we're also going to be talking to you guys about privacy finance, so that's something definitely to look forward to. Now, big news this week, I think Bitcoin has been booming, alts have been fairly stable. Like we said on last week's podcast, 50k was seen as the ultimate bear trap for Bitcoin, and it was. I think 50k was crushed in no time.
I think people are still gunning for that 60k though.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that they're gunning for every single number with an O afterwards. Like
a
every
couple
bear.
of O's, dude. A couple of zeros, but
Yeah.
50k is a very hard barrier.
No, that's true.
Overall, still bullish. It's just that 50 mark, but I think with recent news about the Bitcoin ETF being approved by the SEC, I think this bullish, energy gonna carry over, and with Bitcoin going ham, I think alts tend to follow as well. That's usually how the story goes, but we'll see. Crypto space has changed a lot since the beginning of this year.
No, that's true, but I think that still, indeed, the pattern is there. Like Bitcoin rises, alts rise afterwards, and then it kind of drops off once in a while. I think the fact that kind of like the ATH that was hit by Bitcoin and the weekly close that we kind of saw is really like looking forward towards this ETF that's upcoming. I think it's the ETF, exchange traded fund, is really something that adds validity to Bitcoin as an asset class. And I really hope that other cryptocurrencies will follow suit with this, because I don't know, I think as a currency as well, and as a store of value, the fact that there's more speculative activity surrounding it and more value being like more actual money being actually pumped into the space rather than more philosophical worth, as in like tech improvements or media attention. It's very bullish for Bitcoin overall.
Yeah, I think like this touches on like something we were discussing earlier as well, but basically there's going to be levels to engagement, right, that people are going to want to have with the crypto space and blockchain in general, right? There's those that are going to want full agency of themselves and their finances, and those are the people who are going to study protocols, understand how to use hard wallets, this, that, the other, really become a DeFi degen. And but there's levels to this, right? There's some people who are not going to be comfortable doing that, or they're not comfortable with that much responsibility, and some people are just not going to be that interested in having such close exposure to like cryptocurrencies, but they still want some exposure, and that's a lot of institutions, right? Institutional investors and institutions as a whole, and like this ETF is an instrument for them to get that exposure to cryptocurrencies, and a Bitcoin ETF at that. So this is just indicative of like how varied engagement with blockchain is possible, right? And this is it. This is one of the ways for not only just the institutional investor, but your average retail investor too can probably invest in these ETFs.
Yeah, that's true. But I think that the fact that it's an ETF, right? It has such a large regulatory meaning for these institutional investors, and it's so easy to tax. It's so easy to trade. It's such a nice kind of currency ETFs, right? They're very easy to trade for these kinds of larger institutions, and it's also nice because these larger institutions are effectively speculating in Bitcoin, right? But
Yeah.
they're doing it in a legally protected way,
Yeah.
feeling more and more comfortable. Institutions tend to not just buy like stocks; they tend to buy index funds and these kinds of moves. And ETFs, that's what they go for. They don't tend to overexpose, put all their eggs in one basket,
Mm.
and move in this way. So it's very nice to see, and I think overall, it's one of the most tangible and significant developments we'll see, because so far, yeah, we've had some institutional involvement in
Mm.
crypto and some institutional buy-ins in Bitcoin, but an ETF basically says any institution that's willing to, you know, divest a bit, or diversify their portfolios a bit towards crypto, which are a lot. There was a survey that said, I think, like 7 out of 10 VPs
Mm.
who run investment firms want to diversify into crypto, but are not allowed to due to current regulation.
Right.
So it really shows like a more massive inflow being able to, yeah, get into this market. And I think it was as of August 2021, there's like 9 trillion invested in ETFs, which
Right.
is an insane amount. And let's just hope some of that, trickles down towards the crypto space. I think it's more powerful than a lot of speculation that we hear. A lot of kind of like, oh, tech development happens, and then
Mhm.
you see the Bitcoin price rise 5K. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's amazing, but I think the amount of actual like investment that is happening now will only increase because of this.
Yeah, and it's probably why you see these crazy price predictions. I mean, that's why loads of people are confident about hitting that 60K mark, and they're
Yeah,
confident by end of year that Bitcoin, might hit that 100K mark.
yeah,
And, they might think that October or this ETF news is that catalyst. But I think it takes time, obviously, to break these barriers.
hmm,
But there's nothing to say that this isn't, a catalyst that
hmm,
actually could kick off such a run.
yeah. No, absolutely. And I think that this, out of a lot of, usually you get the insight from a lot of
Mm.
kind of crypto YouTubers, like
Yeah,
people trade the test, or buy the test net, sell the main net.
yeah.
They buy the news, sell the actual application.
The
Or
people
like
who create the news.
yeah, exactly. They buy the rumor and they sell the news. Like these
Exactly.
kinds of perspectives. But I think that with an ETF and the approval of an ETF,
Yeah.
that the effect is slightly different, because you need the actual money to come in.
Right.
Like maybe this increase that we've seen in Bitcoin price around the ETF, that's a lot of retail investors, I
Mm.
think. And I think you see the real boom when the real big boys show up to the space and pump money into it. I think that's what we'll see. I don't think we're anywhere near like a peak that this news surrounding the ETF will have caused, which was
No.
a comment I saw on Twitter, and I thought to myself, like, retail investors compared to institutions really don't have any money. Like there's a big difference in the amount of liquidity they add.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something we're gonna wait and see because right now the money hasn't flowed in yet, right?
Hmm.
It's just gotten approved, but after we start seeing money flow in, then I feel like that's when crypto Twitter will have its more fair judgment,
That's
or
true.
we will will be able to more accurately deduce what the effects of this ETF approval and like what implications it might have for the future
Hmm.
of crypto mass adoption ultimately.
Yeah, exactly. And talking about mass adoption,
Hmm.
we actually just discussed the whole podcast of like an hour
Yeah.
before this podcast. We were discussing what's the iPhone moment for crypto, right? And
Hmm.
for me, a big part of it was privacy. And where did that perspective come from? Yesterday, I was at a wedding talking to a few older people who aren't as much into crypto, but they wanted to know. They talked about it. I told them like, there's encryption, but the main concern they had was privacy. So you can have an address on a blockchain, and everyone can see that address, not per se your name, but that address contains this and this much. Example BTC, and that's a concern for a lot of older investors, I feel, and I think also that they kind of have the perspective like like I said before this podcast, it was the Mona Lisa. You need a lot of security around the Mona Lisa because everyone knows where it is. You wouldn't need as much security around the Mona Lisa if no one knew where it is, right? And that isn't to say that you want secrecy in the sense of no one may know where my crypto is, but you want privacy where you can say some people may know, and I don't know, certain things aren't as easily publicly available to people rather than like nodes.
Mhm.
I think that has the possibility of really creating this, and of course, easy general user interfaces. I think that those things kind of will cause mass adoption, will kind of cause this iPhone moment. There's this common noob statement, right? Like when marketing, like a noob hops into the Discord of a new project, says when marketing, and kind of dips because they don't understand that there needs to be a solid technical base.
Mhm.
But I think that it comes from a very reasonable perspective in a way that it's more like, when does it become super easy to use? When does it become,
Mhm.
ubiquitous in space? When will everyone know about it and easily use it? And that's like your granddad, your grandma, they have an iPhone. Why? Because you have an iPhone. Why? Because the learning curve to use an iPhone is zero. You show up, you have an iPhone, you know how to use it. I think the moment that the crypto space kind of moves to that on a
Mhm.
very superficial level, the ease of mass adoption will be facilitated to a super high degree.
Mhm. No,
What
I
about you?
no, I think no, it's definitely an interesting take, and I think I mean, we had a whole hour debating
Yeah.
this before this podcast, but yeah, I think the I think I agree with you where you're talking about UX and UI and how things are marketed and explained to and presented to consumers or partakers in an ecosystem and such.
Hmm.
Or that's I think that's most important, like, right? But ultimately, in what regard? Where is that important, right?
Hmm.
And I think where you are getting at is that maybe that this ease of use coming from in terms of how easy it is to make your increase your privacy on the blockchain might be the catalyst for an iPhone water is it what it's called, iPhone moment.
An iPhone moment, yeah.
iPhone an iPhone moment is a I think it's better UI, better marketing, and better experiences in terms of the consumer products that
Hmm.
people are actually engaging with in blockchain, for example, because everyone likes OpenSea, everyone likes these dexes and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But everyone agrees that, like, an increase in UX UI is like very necessary for there to be like more mass adoption. I think mass adoption comes from when they're like compelling enough services on blockchain
Yeah.
that have the right UX UI, to meet the demand ultimately. Like,
Yeah.
I think when we see consumer products like social media on
Hmm.
blockchain that can rival, email, that can rival, Facebook, WhatsApp, all these social traditional Web2 social media. Once we have UX UI that can compete with that, but the
Hmm.
back underlying security technology or whatsoever is validated on the blockchain. I think
Yeah.
that's where we get most. Or also, gaming. Like, gaming also is
Oh
part of
yeah.
this, but like, I think gaming and cryptocurrencies, great gaming, blockchain, and crypto like have this like beautiful marriage that
Hmm.
we're seeing like really explode now. With a lot of games, like Axie Infinity and Illuvium. I think I mean, like Axie alone has a couple million, active players. Like
Yeah.
right now, and it's really like no they're nowhere near as where they would envision, right? They
Hmm.
like really do have a bigger plan, and other blockchain games are really striving to go further than what traditional gaming companies have done, gaming studios have created. So I think that space I mean, gaming as a whole is just a huge multi-billion-dollar space, right?
Yeah.
And I think like the amount of people that will come into crypto and blockchain through gaming is just undeniable. But I think that falls under, these consumer products, like good consumer products on the blockchain will ultimately, be what brings, more people. And of course, like with that, there's an ease of use element.
Yeah, that's what I was saying in our
Yeah.
previous discussion. It was like the iPhone really wasn't that different from the telephone. Like the only difference was you could listen to some music, you could watch a
Mm.
video, and you could
Yeah.
send some text easier. Instead of having to press a button 3 times, you can just
Yeah.
press it once. And I think that kind of ease of use sparks a lot of like people to use it, because I don't know,
Mm.
like, so a lot of reason why people don't have like very good routines is because they make their routines too complicated, right?
Yeah.
Like people don't work out because they overwork themselves in
Mhm.
the first week and then they get demotivated.
Right.
Like this kind of stuff I feel like is very much human, very much natural, and I feel like in crypto it's something that is very surface level and very superficial and very um, it sounds very stupid. You know,
Mhm.
it's like the go-to argument of anyone who, like even Elon Musk said something in that kind of dimension, right? Oh, we just need to scale the block size 10x and then we'll be done. Easy, cheap transaction. Done.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of like the go-to argument of a lot of people. But
I
I
know.
think it makes sense. The need for it makes sense. And I think in an abstract, more philosophical way, a lot of crypto projects and a lot of cryptocurrencies would benefit from that perspective in facilitating mass adoption.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
if if we increase, I mean, this increasing throughput and block space capacity is just like, oh, that's a whole nother debate, bro. Because
Hmm.
then if you're increasing your throughput, right, you're decreasing the amount of time. I mean, the amount of available time for nodes to reach consensus. So
Yeah.
in effect, you give up security. So like,
Yeah.
hence why BNB is such a disaster for many, because they've just upped throughput, right,
Yeah.
to the max. And what a lot of people believe is that the blockchain will just collapse onto itself,
Yeah.
right? So that's a, oh man, this is a whole nother episode. Whole nother episode, but maybe we should discuss this next episode.
We'll discuss it next episode.
Security, decentralization, through security. Ah man, there's the triangle that, what's it called? There's a
Like
triangle.
scalability,
Scalability
decentralization,
and
and
what's the other one? Security. I feel
yeah,
like it's security.
yeah, security, decentralization, and scalability. That's the
Yeah, if you
triangle.
try to, yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah,
people can look it up,
yeah, no,
but it's very
exactly,
something to talk about the
no,
next
exactly,
episode.
exactly. So, with that said, tune in for next episode where we're gonna talk to you a bit about this triangle of scalability, security, decentralization, and we will see you in the next episode of the Block Exploring podcast. Take it easy.